Just got back from the local skate shop where I picked up a new pair of Stage 4 independent trucks. Super hyped. This is a reissue. That's kind of how I look at it. The Stage 4 independent trucks, which was one of their best trucks ever made. They just had to progress and try to go further, but now they're going back. I think sometimes you have to do that as a brand. So in this video, I really want to break these in and see if they're any better than previous independent trucks, see if they're how close they really are to the classic Stage 4s, and also, do they turn better than ACEs? Do they turn as good as they've been hyped up to turn? I've seen multiple videos about these trucks, but every video that I've seen has either been from a skate shop or a skate brand. And I think those aren't always the most reliable source. I'm gonna have my subjective opinion, and hopefully by the end of this video, you can figure out if these trucks are for you, if they're any better, if they're worth the upgrade essentially. They were $59 from the skate shop, totally a fair price for a good pair of trucks. So, and this Stage 4 is no different than the original. Only difference is that they have the 6 holes in the base plate, and the cool part about having multiple holes in your base plate is that you can essentially switch up your wheelbase on any board that you had. That's something independent trucks actually used to do to all their trucks. So again, this isn't a reinvented truck. I would say this is a remarketed truck, a rebranded truck. And my subjective opinion before we get some initial thoughts on it is that independent is trying to keep up with the marketplace, right? You have slappy trucks, you have all these truck brands essentially like pushing innovation. So now independent has to come out with a new product that's swinging. So let's jump into it. And to be completely honest, I'm actually not done with my ACE AF1 Hollows. These have taken me a little bit of breaking in. I had a whole problem with my actual nut coming off, the wheel nut. I've solved it. I've made tons of different videos about these ACEs, so we won't jump too much into ACEs. The only thing I do want to compare is the turning ability to see if these Stage 4s really have that improved turning ability. That said, let's get these bad boys on there. Whoops. So I did buy these trucks with my own money. Something I wanted to say right away is that I wish I had something additional to it. Like, it's cool that independent like remarketed this truck and has the red bushings. That is one thing that's like really clear and identifiable. There's no cross, we'll get into the cross. They have this reed threader tool that comes with the ACE, and I think that is really cool. It's one little extra trinket that kind of improves the buying process. Like for me, I was like, oh cool, it has a little extra thing. So that is one initial feedback, is just I feel like independent could have done a little more with just like presenting this, like as maybe just having a reed threader, or maybe their package cool. It's one thing that I was a little bit lackluster in my opinion. However, that's not what independent's trying to say. They're not saying this is like some cool unboxing experience. They're trying to say this is a classic truck, not really reinvented but rebranded. I'm not saying that independent didn't sort of own the marketplace, which they have owned the marketplace for a long time. That's kind of why they're going back. Almost in a way, I think that's sort of what independent is realizing. Like, they had such a good truck. They went so far to try to innovate, but now all these new truck companies are coming out with just like the essentials, and they're seeing that's what skaters want. I should probably talk about what size I got. Nice part about these is it does mark it down here underneath the hanger, says 166. So these are actually the biggest Stage 4s you can get right now. I ride an 8.7 normally. That's kind of a range. I go from like 8.7 to 8.8 to 9 sometimes, but I do think like this is going to be a good size truck. I ride these 66 ACEs, and these are pretty much a comparable size. I definitely do wish that every truck brand just got on one consistent sizing measure. I like how Slappy's is doing it by the deck size. To me, that just makes the most sense. Now, the look on them is nice. They're a little more beefy. Personally, my opinion, I actually kind of like Lerpiv trucks and ACE trucks where they have less hanger. You know, that kind of thing is an aesthetic choice though. I don't think that'll affect too much of the actual like functioning and the skating of it. I mean, it will a little bit. I mean, maybe it'll affect my like pinch spot. I guess we'll see shortly if it affects anything. And these red bushings, they're actually the softest bushings. So the bushings they come with are the softest pair you can get. From my understanding, the bushings are not universal, meaning you can't take the bushings out of your Stage 11s and put them in the Stage 4s. That's just not going to work for you, which I think could be seen as a kind of a negative, to be honest. A lot of people like to switch out their bushings, their old bushings with their new truck. I don't think you'll be able to be doing that with these trucks. Me personally, I don't care. I like breaking in the bushings that come with the trucks. When I get ACE trucks, I skate the bushings that they are. Lerpiv, Thunder, Independent, I always just skate the trucks. I don't really like swapping them out. Some people love their bones, bushings, and all of that. I honestly think if you can break in trucks and just skate them without tightening them or loosening them right away, I've always said this theory on my channel forever, is that's how you get the best bushings. They start to kind of curate to your skating, where if like I start to tighten these down or loosen them right away while I'm skating them right away, I think you jeopardize the integrity of the bushings, and then the process gets messed up and you don't end up with a really good bushing, which is why a lot of times people end up tinkering their bushings so much, is because because they're trying to get like that perfect ride right away. And I think the way to get that perfect ride is to essentially just break your truck in without tightening or loosening them. It might be a little bit brutal if you're used to really tight trucks at first. I like to ride my trucks on a medium, I would say, stiffness. Not super loose, not super tight, just enough to where I can, you know, get some maneuverability. I like to carve a lot. I skate a lot of transition, pulls, tight transition, DIY. So I definitely want to be like able to move around a lot. If you're wondering why I'm wearing a pea coat, it's because it should be raining any minute. I'm risking it right now. Hopefully it doesn't start pouring. And if it does, I will accept that. I feel like I'm jinxing it right now. It's definitely more geometry to these trucks, and I think that's where Independent did a really good job at one point, and where they sort of diverted from because they probably just wanted to keep reinventing their product. That's what a company has to do. Like if Independent stopped at the stage 4, who knows if they'd be in the position that they're in now. So I don't think there's anything wrong with like going to previous versions of the truck and trying to push forward and maybe not making a better version, but just trying. I think all of that is important. All right, truck number 2. It's not super shiny. Now let's get the wheels on there. It looks pretty good. As far as like where the trucks sit on my board, I think they sit really nicely. Like if you had a 9-inch board, I think they would be floating underneath. So yeah, that's always a weird thing with truck brands. They like to say that that's 9 inches, but for some reason, like I'm looking straight down. One thing you can really do though is get your wheels on there. You can add more washers, kind of push your wheel off to the edge a little bit. If you're crazy like me and you really want to get that extra leverage, I'm gonna skate these as they are, standard. They don't come with extra washers. It looks like it's about to storm, so I need to hurry up and get these other wheels on there. So something I should say, this is a single wing hanger and they sit at 55 millimeters tall. Because I have 56 millimeter wheels, I'm gonna be pushing it. Luckily, I have my puller board that has my wheel well, so I get a little more extra turn having these wheel wells on my board. But yeah, we're gonna be riding it without any riser pads, so we'll also see like kind of what that height is like. I personally actually like a little bit of a mid. It might even be low sometimes. I like a mid though, because like I said, I hate riser pads. I don't ride them ever, so I like to be just real close. I definitely get wheel bite, but I'd rather get a little bit of wheel bite than to have like a piece of plastic in between my wood and my metal. Not against it. Actually, I am against it, aren't I? I'm not against people riding riser pads. I just personally don't. Although there's people out there way better than me that find it valuable. They're on there. It looks pretty good. That's like first impressions of how it looks on my board. Definitely looks a lot more beefier and just like kind of a heavy dutier grind, heavy dutier truck than the ACE AF1 Hollows, that's for sure. Now to go see if they actually churn and grind as good. That's the real test here. So before we dive into my thoughts on these trucks after skating them for the past couple of weeks, I do want to mention that Joey Terchet started ACE Trucks and he worked for Independent. He basically left Independent Trucks because he saw a missed marketplace opportunity. And what I mean by that is like the turnability in Independent Trucks wasn't what they used to be. So Joey decided to go and start ACE Trucks in 2017. So something to be noted, a lot of people say like ACE mimicked Indy and this and that and this and that, but like just realize where ACE Trucks come from in the history, because they worked for Independent. Joey worked for Independent, then he started his own truck company. And I think the reason Stage 4 exists now is probably because of ACE Trucks. So just something to think about. I'm not sure Independent would have even made these trucks had they not had the crazy competition that they now have with these bad boys. So let's get into it, kind of compare them. I'll tell you if I would buy these now that I've ridden both. So one thing that I noticed right away is that I didn't have to actually break these trucks in. That was something I want to compliment Stage 4 Independence in general. Like I stepped on these trucks and I could just skate them right away. And my friend Al actually had a very similar experience. I'll show you the clip right now.
Here are the black Aces. I love the way these turn. These have always been great, they've treated me well. I think I've had these Aces since last year, honestly. Hollow, I don't know, I have a hard time with Hollow. I think in my head it's because like I'm a really big dude and I do a lot of truck slaps, so I need like some strength in there, yeah. I've had Hollows before and I snapped them off within like a month. Here we go. Well, they turn good, I'll say that. They grind good. Let's see this. Oh yeah, they turn good, dude. These are okay. This is pretty crazy because I don't feel like I need to break in the bushings. Damn, dude. Holy shit.
So good, huh?
It's a really good board. You guys saw how fast I was cutting back and cutting around. I was like really trying to fill them out. And not only that, when I have like a new truck, never rid it, grinds, especially like pivot fakies, the feeble fakies. Yeah. That stuff takes getting used to on different trucks, I feel like, because there's a different lock-in. Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying earlier, if you get too on the side, like I didn't get wheel bite and I was like cutting really hard. Yeah. So, damn, dude. I think I'm gonna get some of these. ACE's bushings, I would sit on the board and just kind of go back and forth like on my carpet in my house to break in the bushings because it takes time. Exactly. Like this, you didn't even need break-in time. It was just put it on and ready to rip. So I'm stoked on these.
So there is really no denying that these stage 4s do churn just like ACE. I would actually, after skating them enough, I would say they don't churn as sharp as ACE. I think they churn as good. You get as much turnability. They don't churn as sharp, meaning it's like not as quick as a responsive churn. It's actually a little more of a relaxed churn, but then there's more resistment the closer you get to that wheel bite. So the closer you get to that wheel bite, it does start to stiffen up a little bit, where ACE will just let you get into that wheel bite if you want to. So you can see that as a good thing or a bad thing. I think what I'm trying to get at is like, I think the ACE trucks is more responsive, really quick. However, I think the stage 4s are more controllable if you're not used to skating loose trucks. I mean, you can get that turn, I think, even if you have tighter trucks. Well, maybe not if you have tighter trucks, but the point is that like it's more controllable, I think. Unless you've been skating ACEs for a long time, I actually do like that sharp, really responsive turn. So I guess ultimately, when it comes down to the churning, I don't think there's advantages or disadvantages in between ACE and Indy, but there is a consideration of how fast it is churning. And some people might like that these churn a little bit slower and they have a little bit of that wheel bite resistance. It almost kind of reminds me of lurp pivs in a way. They still don't churn as fast as lurp piv. So that's just something to think about. So really when it comes down to the churnability, I don't think that's too much of the equation anymore in choosing whether you want to ride these ACEs or if you want to ride the stage 4s. Now, the one thing I will get into that you have to consider beyond the churning is the grinding. That is one thing that I thought was kind of weird with these trucks. If you look at it, it does have like more of a matte finish. Like there's almost more grit on this truck in general. Like you can almost see more texture in it, where with the AF1s, it's really, really, it's gonna sound corny, but it's really shiny. Like the whole, you know, alloy or the outside feels more shiny. Like there's almost like this protective layer, like a clear lacquer on it, where this is just like almost feels more raw. And I have noticed that in the grinding. And you might think this is kind of crazy. This is getting really granular, and some people might not even notice this, but I felt like my ACEs just could grind longer with the same amount of speed. Obviously, that's just what I'm taking away from it. If you had like the same exact wheel, same exact board, and switch these trucks out, it'd be more of a realistic test. But this is the one thing I noticed. I just think the ACE trucks in general do grind better. I think they grind smoother and they grind longer because of this outside cast. I'm not really sure what it is, but as you can tell, like in the video, hopefully you can see. If not, then I'm just gonna sound crazy, but hopefully you can see like the shininess is different. And I've had these for months, and these stage 4s are only a couple weeks old. However, they're a lot more gritty compared to my AF1 ACE Hollows. So that is the one thing I will say. I don't think the grinding is as good. I think the churning is just as good. Kind of comes into a more subjective manner of the type of skating you like to do. So if you're like slaloming, maybe these would be good, but if you're skating backyard pools, I still think the ACEs are gonna have a little more of a quick response for you. So the height actually does surprise me a little bit, and there's a big difference, not a big difference, but a big enough difference to be considered if you're gonna get the ACE or Stage 4s. These are 55 millimeters tall, the Stage 4 Independents, where the ACE AF1 Hollows, these 66s are actually 53.35 tall. So pretty big difference, or a lot lower. And I do think I was able to have just more control of my board. I like a lower truck. I like being closer to the ground. I like having everything like more controlled and fast and responsive. The thing is, it's funny is that like you'd think you would get even more wheel bite because these are a little bit lower. But yeah, because I have my wheel wells, wheel bite isn't a big thing, big consideration when I'm buying trucks. I try to just think about like you're gonna get wheel bite no matter what if you turn super sharp. So it's about having something that kind of compromises that. Because these do sit a little bit lower, the ACE, I do feel like I get a quicker snap and I'm more like responsive to the ground. Like I can just get it really quick, especially even things like tail slides. I feel like I can just lock it in there quick. There's less like distance from my board. So I personally really like the height of the ACEs. These are where the things get a little more granular and it goes beyond just churning ability. Now I realize some of you actually might care about the weight, and I do have in kilograms. Let's see if this scale goes to kilograms. Does it? Ounces. Ultimately, my only complaint with these trucks is the grinding, and something about it that I thought was really weird that Al brought up is like my nut actually unscrewed in the back a little bit, or they just came that way out of the factory. I haven't touched these trucks at all as far as like the actual kingpin nut goes, so did get a little bit looser. And the one thing I will say is like I did grab my kingpin quite a lot, so this kingpin distance to the hanger is a little bit scary to me, and it's something about the geometry and the shape of it. I just feel like when I was doing Smith grinds, I was really grabbing this back hanger quite a lot. Like something about just like the way this sits on the ledge, I was just digging into that hanger. It's not a big deal. Maybe you can like shave down the nut a little bit. These are things where I think independent can really do well. Like if I was independent trucks, I'd just like cancel everything else, go to the Stage 4s, start shaving down this kingpin a little bit, maybe make a hollow. Like there's things you can perfect from this truck. Maybe make this hanger a little bit slimmer so you don't have that problem. These are just things I'm guessing. Obviously I don't know if those would solve the problem, but yeah, the grinding on these was my biggest issue. And I just realized that I got a chip in my new split fires, dang it. Now, for my understanding, Thunder trucks are the only trucks that are made in the USA. So if people want to find a USA made truck, just go to Thunder and then you can have that. I haven't skated Thunders in a while, so really can't tell you which ones you should get. So is this truck the Ace Killer, like some skate shops decided to put in their skate shop description, the Ace Killer? No, it's not the Ace Killer, it's the Ace Combator. That's how I would say it. Is like independent has finally got a truck back on the market that actually can compete with Ace. I think that's really what it is. It's definitely not the Ace Killer. That's just my opinion from someone that maybe is a little biased, because I do love my Aces. I did ride Indies for like 6 years. I've gone back and forth, but yeah, I'm probably going to stick with my Aces now. The real question is like, should you buy these if you're in the position to be buying Aces or Indies? I personally would still go with the Aces if I have the budget. So that's something you have to consider if you are on a little more of a pinch. I do think these trucks can do really good for you, and they are a little bit cheaper than the Aces, so that's nice. However, I don't know how long they're going to last yet. Obviously, I've only ridden these for a couple of weeks, so I can't give you like a full comparison of the longevity on them, because maybe these Ace cost, you know, is counterbalanced by how long they last. So yeah, just things to think about. Really, I mean, when we get this granular into the product, it really is subjective on your type of skating as well. I personally have never bought a product because it has some symbols or anything like that on it. What I'm getting about is the Iron Cross on the independent trucks. I personally never bought independent because I had an Iron Cross, so it really doesn't make the purchasing any different for me. I get how people have this like nostalgic identity with independent trucks, and like they're kind of mad maybe at the cancel culture and things like that, but like ultimately I think about it this way: like if you have a favorite restaurant that you love so much and they take the one thing off the menu that you always get when you go to that restaurant, like are you just going to leave the restaurant? Are you going to be stubborn and not try anything else? Or are you going to trust the chef and try something else on the menu?